and I believe Facebook is streaming all this because I had a little glitch before. So people think they have an individual life, okay? They have an individual life path, and they believe that the life they live is unique and only unique for them. So, that meaning that they have the individual somehow progressing life. But in fact, the life that we are living is actually one for all of us. We have we start when we are babies, and then we are children, and then we are teenagers, and then we are adults, and then we have the body aging, and we start seeing things different again. We become old, as they say, using this human language, using the language to express myself. So basically, this side of things, this side of life, is same for everyone. You become child, I already said those stages, but you cannot avoid any of them unless you decide to stop all that experience. So this side of things is all and for each and every one of us. Of course, we receive different experience on the path, but if you are a child, if you are adult, or if you are a teenager, you still have similar amplitude or similar possibilities of how your teenage life looks like. Okay, maybe you've been born in rich family or poor family or whatever family, but you're still going through very similar processes in your life. Okay. In regards of spiritual path, in regards of your awakening, you also have few possibilities here. This also pronounced in your physical brain. So if you have survival mechanisms, which is certain part of your brain, if you have fight or flight mechanisms, which is also certain part of your brain, therefore you have also the uh, frontal lobes, which is your human brain, and that has totally different functions. So when the awakening happens, then human being starts living more out of his human brain. Before that, when a human being lives from survival, he lives more out of fear. So all the decisions are based on survival, meaning person is always careful, person is always trying to build the plans, trying not to repeat certain mistakes, not to do certain things. So basically, all the decisions that human being makes are based on fear. Okay, if you understand what I mean. When you awaken, when you start um, using your human brain, and when you start transitioning into your spiritual reality, things change again for you, and you start seeing life from through the prism or through the eyes of totally different reality. Even when you look back on your life, you also see it differently, even though you lived with totally different consciousness before. Now, from the spiritual perspective, you start seeing it the same. It's through the spiritual eyes, if I can say that myself. Okay, so when you start walking on the spiritual path, there isn't there isn't there aren't many different options available for you either. There are similar options for every single human being. Everything is very similar, and everything is very similar. And there are certain stages. I used to call it like a doors that you have to go through. And when you go through that door, this is symbolic expression. When you go through that door, say when I compare this to the stages like a child, teenager, and then adult, and so on. But here also there are certain doors or certain stages. And when you go through these stages, you have to enter certain doors into different reality. And this reality is governed by certain principles. So, for example, if I would give you an example, when you come to the household, when you come to the yard, in the yard you have one kind of a rules how you can act. When you come to the hallway, there is another function of this place. When you come into the sitting room, there is another function of this place. Yeah, so there are different functions, and in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the bedroom, there are different functions of these places. But at the same time, there are certain different rules. You do not start dining in your bedroom, or you do not start living in your outside of the house, things like that. Of course, you can do it, but normally you don't do these things. Okay, so same thing here. When you go through certain stages, through certain realizations of your life, of your spiritual life, of your ordinary life, spiritual, the word spiritual is just a symbolic word that we are decided together to use it for certain stages of your life. So when you start living real life, when you awaken, again, um, you start going through certain stages. And in those certain stages, there are certain rules that you can live through. The further you advance, the clearer you see that the path is actually the same for every single human being. There are no different paths. It's just the different little pathways before you enter certain door and you enter certain place, certain state of mind. When you enter that certain state of mind, um, you again start searching, or if you found you start learning to live life in that stage until you enter another stage where you start learning how to live life in that stage. Okay, that's how this evolution functions. But before you enter those stages, or before you enter those doors, as I would call, it looks to you as if you have your individual experience, as if you would have your own ways of living life and understanding life. In fact, it's not like that. Things are not like that. Things are almost similar for everyone because this reality, this universe is created in a certain way with a certain principles, with a certain boundaries, with certain rules. For example, when you have a body, when you have this physical body, you you have certain limitations of experience. Okay, you have certain limitations of experience. Of course, when you start transitioning into higher levels of consciousness, then you realize that the body is just a form that you can use to express yourself. But it's still just certain limitations apply to this stage of your life, however far you may advance in your spiritual life. Okay. So with this video, I just wanted to create clarity and just wanted to 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 shed a little bit more light on the path. That path is not different for everyone, but the path is the same for everyone. It's just your individuality or your personality goes through these stages slightly different. And that's normal because we are those unique personalities with a unique mindset, with a unique ways of seeing things and so on. Okay? So that much, that much wanted to say, and message already about 8 minutes or 8 minutes more. So I think that's enough. So think about it, and if you have any questions, or if you have any thoughts or expressions, you may agree with me, may not agree with me, you can disagree. Just leave it in the comments, and if it helps you, you can share it to other individuals, to other people on your timelines. You're welcome to share this video. Okay, so thanks for being here with me, whether you're live, whether you are not. It's just a little message, maybe helpful for you to understand certain things. More in different live videos.